Hello everyone. I'm sure, like myself, many of you have experienced this, a sudden rekindling of an old wargaming passion. And in my case, this all started when I began my quest to be able to replay this Amiga 500 game, Dreadnoughts. So I've been as you're probably aware if you've seen some of my previous videos, I've been purchasing Amigas and basically trying to get them to work, and I have succeeded in being able to replay the World War One part of this game, but not yet successfully or entirely satisfactorily the Russo-Japanese War section of it. Can't get the sound effects to work on it yet, but I'm working on that still. So in the meantime, as I say, it's sort of, sparked my interest again in naval war gaming in general, and in particular the Russo-Japanese War, and adding to the fuel, I rewatched an old favourite film of mine, the Battle of the Sea of Japan, which is a battle we know as the Battle of Shikishima. It's a film made by Toho Studios, starring Toshiro Mifune, that was made back in 1968. I did want to put some clips up of it on my channel, but got blocked for copyright reasons, obviously. Thought that would probably be the case, but I have been able to put some stills up, and that sort of whetted my appetite even more. So I've already had a few comments on that video, saying, are you going to war game it? And I thought, well, I've got all the ships, and it's not going to be, apart from the fact I'm going to have to clear a table space, and the room is so cluttered now, especially with bits and pieces of Amiga computers. But anyway, I've got all the ships, and I'm ready to go. So I should be able to get a battle report in the next probably next couple of weeks, hopefully, fingers crossed. But in the meantime, I thought I would showcase my ships, just to give you a little bit of a preview. So I've got sufficient ships to replay the Battle of the Yellow Sea, not the Battle of Tsushima. So that's what I'm going to be doing. And I've actually got two scales that I could use. I have got a lot of 1/1000th scale ships from Houston ships. They're okay, but they're not particularly good quality. They're very old range now, have been handed around to various suppliers, the molds, and they're that kind of soft lead, so the masts are a bit bendy, and they're not particularly good castings, but they are a convenient scale, 1/1000th. So I'm happy to have them, and I do play with them occasionally. But my favourite, and these still aren't perfect, these are 1/600th scale ships, from Old Glory's shipyard. Now, again, these aren't perfect. They're quite large, so you can just about get away with ships of this size for this period. But when you move later on, I mean, particularly the First World War, you'd need a massive table to be able to play a game using 1/600th scale ships. So this is about the latest date that you could satisfactorily play a game in 1/600th on a relatively small tabletop. Also, they're a sort of mix of resin and metal. not very good instructions on how to put them together. Let's just yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment maybe, but let's just show you. So this is the Japanese fleet. You've got the Mikasa here, then I believe that's the Asahi behind it, and then you have the Shikishima, I think, and then the Fuji, and then the Japanese were a little bit short on heavy ships at this time, so they incorporated two kind of armoured cruisers into their fleet, one of which is called the Nishin, and the other one begins with a K, excuse me a moment, I think it's Kasuga. Yeah, Kasuga. So they're sort of sister ships, but I think they're Garibaldi class Italian built ships. You can tell them apart because the Kasuga's got a single barreled gun turret at the front of the ship, whereas the Nishin has a double barreled turret, so they are slightly different in appearance. So let's just see if I can zoom in a little bit now, give you a slightly better close-up of each one. So as I was saying, they're resin and metal. Lots of the hull is basically resin and most of the rest of it metal, and you do have to drill holes and so on to fit the parts in, and it doesn't really come with many assembly instructions, so they're fairly sort of self-explanatory in what goes where, but they are a little bit prone to being damaged when you're playing with them, because there are so many parts that you have to glue metal to resin and so on, and the mass, I can't remember now. Yeah, I think it comes with mass, but I used sort of copper wire to make the yard arms, and then did a very kind of basic bits of rigging on it, so I could run flags up it and so on, but it's very kind of easily damaged when you're handling it, because the masts are very kind of soft metal and they bend, and then the rigging gets slack and so on, and bits fall off, so they're not the easiest of things to play with. So that was the Mikasa, and then, as I say, the Asahi behind it. And then that is the Shikishima. I think the Mikasa was definitely British built. I'm not sure how many of the others are. Mikasa still kind of exists as a museum piece now. I think it's in Yokohama. After the Second World War, in order to prevent it being used in any kind of military capacity, it was actually kind of embedded in concrete, so that it would never be able to float again. But I visited Japan once and I never went to see it. I don't know why. There's an interesting channel called Green Morning Dragon Productions, who I subscribe to, who went round it once, filmed the Mikasa. That was a very interesting video. On the Kasuga there, I think you can just about make out, that's as much as I can zoom in, but you can see that turret is single barrel, whereas you got double barrel there on the Nishin. Right, now I'll show you my Russian counterparts to this. Okay, on the Russian side, I've got 9 of the 10 kind of principal ships that I should have for the Battle of the Yellow Sea. More on the missing one later. So I've had to sort of get them all in the camera more easily. I've had to sort of put them a little bit closer together. So if we just look at the centre line to begin with, we start off here with the flagship, Whitgift's flagship, which was the Tsarevich, French-built ship. A lot of people I've heard on YouTube describing it as very ugly lines, but I love the look of the Tsarevich. It's got that classic French feature, which is a tumble home, sloping sides, kind of a throwback to the days of the age of sail, when it sort of prevented boarding actions from taking place because the decks were further apart. But I just love that. So that's the flagship, and then behind it, the one in the right in the middle there is the Ratvizan, and then, if I remember correctly, the one with the ochre stacks is the Pobjeda, which means victory. And closest to the camera here now, you have the I'm going to have to look these up in a minute, but I think that's the Peresviet. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'll just check that. Hang on. Yep, the Peresviet. And then following that is the Sevastopol. And following that, the Poltava. Okay, and then in the background, you've got 3 cruisers, starting with the Novik, and then you have the Pallada and the Diana in the distance there. So a lot of there's a sort of class of Russian cruisers all named after Greek goddesses and so on. So the other classic, famous one is the Aurora, which is still I have actually visited the Aurora in it was Leningrad at the time. That was obviously the ship that fired the first shots of the Bolshevik Revolution, so it's been preserved as a museum ship as well. Very interesting vessel to go around. Let's just zoom in a little bit, give you a sort of closer look at some of the detail on them again. Similar issues, metal and resin and lots of parts that are easily dislodged as you're handling them and playing with them. But on the whole, having got them out after all these years now, I'm a lot more pleased with them than I thought I would be. They're certainly going to be all right to wargame with, and the whole project, not that it's a project as such, but the whole exercise is going to give me an excuse to clear my clutter off of all the work surfaces and things that exist at the moment. So it'd be a good excuse to tidy up my house a bit and have a bit of a fun game. The thing I was going to say, the other cruiser that was present was the Askold. Now, of all the ships in this Russian fleet, the Askold is probably the one that I'm most interested in, and it doesn't exist in the range of Old Glory's shipyard, which is why I haven't got it. But now, the Empires of Steel, no, Broadside it's called, range of ships that are available for 3D printing on Kickstarter are about to bring out the Russian World War One files, and I'm certainly going to subscribe to that because they include the Askold because the Askold survived the Russo-Japanese War and went on to serve in the Imperial Russian Navy during the First World War. And it's got really fascinating history, and I'm certainly going, once I've got that printed up, and I'll probably print it up in this scale, 1/600th, and also in the 1/1500th scale that it comes in the original, so I can incorporate it into this fleet as well. But once I've done that, I'm going to be making a video on the subject of the history of the Askold and some of the personalities who are associated with it, because it's got an absolutely fascinating history. But anyway, that's by the by. So hopefully in the next few weeks or so I should have cleared enough sufficient space and got the game rehearsed and be able to give you a battle report on it, the Battle of the Yellow Sea. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.